Hello, this is Brian Jackson. Welcome everyone to another episode of Lawedup. The whole purpose of these podcasts are to help people understand a little bit more of the law, not just attorneys, but everyone. And today we're going to talk a little bit about property law, and this one should be pretty fun because it involves Shohei Ohtani, his baseball, and how it relates to property law. Property law is really, really old stuff. We've adopted property law from the English, and we really don't like property law changing. And so it's kind of like an old dinosaur, like finding a fish off the coast of Madagascar that we thought was extinct with the dinosaurs. It's kind of like that. Property law is an old dinosaur because we like continuity when it comes to property law. We don't like it changing up a whole lot. Usually the most tense situations in property law is between cities and developers, and if the city denies something or requires something, that's usually where a lot of lawsuits come up because it's kind of a tug and pull. You technically have a constitutional right, but there's obviously been some limits somewhat as it relates to zoning and stuff like that. And so there's always people butting heads with the city trying to get permits or denied permits and trying to develop their land and trying to get it zoned a certain way. But this is a little sliver of that, and there's a part in property law as it relates to abandoned property. And so what abandoned property is somebody that clearly relinquishes their right to property. So there's kind of a fine line between abandoned property, as essentially what the law says is abandoned property is fair game, but lost property can be considered theft. So there's a fine line between that. And so usually there's not necessarily a specific time frame, but you just have to show that someone has clearly relinquished that right to the property. So a wallet, if you find a wallet in a river and it's been there for quite some time, and there's money in it, potentially you could claim that that's abandoned property. But lost property, if you find a cell phone or a wallet and somebody just lost it the day of and you take it, that could be considered stolen property. So again, you have to look at someone clearly relinquishing. So the other thing too is if you find property on someone else's property, then it's technically still their property. So you just can't go around on other people's property and saying, hey, I found this, it was abandoned, because it's still on their property, and so it's technically not abandoned. So abandoned property also has to be somewhere off someone else's property to claim that they abandoned their property. So the other thing is with baseball, it's kind of an interesting scenario because you kind of have to look at who is the owner of this baseball and whether or not the baseball has been abandoned. But then also when it comes to abandonment of property, you have to take possession of the property, which I think is a fun fact pattern with the Shohei Ohtani ball and scrutinizing where possession comes in. So we'll get into that. So we have this baseball, and it's a fun fact pattern, and it's interesting because essentially Shohei Ohtani, there's a game where he's about to hit the first baseball player in history to hit 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases. And so this home run ball will be the 50-50 ball because he's already got 50 stolen bases. And so what's funny is the time the ball leaves his bat, this ball has obtained all this crazy value. I guess people have said that this ball could be valued around $3 million. So you have this $3 million ball flying through the air. And so the question is, well, isn't this Ohtani's baseball? He's the one that hit it. Shouldn't he be the owner of it? Which is a good question. then you look to the policy of Dodger Stadium. And what Dodger Stadium policy says that if you hit a home run, if you hit a ball, if you get a ball, it's a souvenir, essentially. And so that's their policy pretty much says that the baseball is abandoned. The Dodgers aren't making any claim to it. It says that the Dodgers can approach you and say, hey, we'd like the ball back, but it's up to the person that gets the ball and the goodness of their heart if they want to give it up. There's no policy that says, hey, you have to give the ball back in this certain circumstance. So the Dodgers, I think, said that, hey, we'll give you $300,000 for this ball, and if it's valued at around $3 million, obviously that they lowballed them, literally. So now we get to the, okay, who owns the baseball? Because if many of you don't know, there was a lawsuit that was filed by an 18-year-old as a result of the scruffle that kind of happened when the ball was hit. So I'll kind of go through what I've seen online, the videos that I've seen. I've only really seen 2 videos. I've seen one cell phone video. I haven't seen any other videos. Cell phone videos besides this one, and then there's the live Fox video, and I think Fox probably has more footage that can give us a clear view because it's a little bit unclear about how this all went down, trying to put the 2 videos together. So if any of you see things differently than what I saw, feel free to comment or post the link, take a look at that a little bit further. But this is based off my analysis of what I've seen just looking at these 2 videos so far. So the ball hits, it's going into the outfield. And there's a video by Fox of this one guy who's trying to catch the ball. He reaches out and, $3 million just passes his hand. And then the ball hits the concrete and bounces back up, and he has another chance, and he misses it. And then it bounces back down one more time. And then, so what you see is there's this metal fence, and then there's a kind of a metal sheet on the ground that I think is supposed to cover cords. And there's kind of like this, like maybe 2-3 foot of cement, and there's no seats there, so I think it's just I think there's like kind of a drinking standing area on the other side of the fence, and then the concrete, and then probably below are some seats in the baseball stadium. So the ball hits the ground in front of the fence, and then this 18-year-old, it looks like he kind of pounces on the ball. And he kind of lands around the area where that metal thing is. But it's unclear if he has the ball at that time. Because then the next video that you see, the cell phone camera footage, it shows that the ball is on the other side of the fence now. And then this 18-year-old is on the other side of the fence now. And there's a couple of chairs on the ground, and there's some scruffling. And then you see this guy that has the ball like tucked in his legs, in his crotch area. And he's kind of got it trapped in there. And then the 18-year-old is kind of like trying to get it, but not. And then claiming that he had it or something. So the question is, who had possession of this baseball? And looking at the video, if this kid is on the other side of the fence at the very beginning and he pounces on it and he has it, then I'd probably say that he has possession of it. But it seems like, and I don't have, again, it's kind of in between videos. It seems like when he pounced on it, it popped out and went under the fence. And then he had to jump over the fence to grab it. So I think his claim is probably, I had it, but then it popped out. And then the other guy, there was the scruffle and the guy grabbed it. And so did he have possession of it when it popped out? And when we go to possession, I would probably say that, if somebody catches it with their bare hand and they're able to hold it up in the air, I would say that that's possession. Or if you catch it with your mitt and it's in your mitt, I would say that's possession. If someone tries to grab the ball out of your hand afterwards or out of the glove, then you probably have a strong lawsuit. But this one is more like a live ball, like a football fumble. And so I would say there's not a lot of precedent on what possession is in this scenario, but I would say you would go to the football rules to kind of carve out what possession is. And in football, like when you make a catch, like you have to, I mean, they always change it, but it used to be you had to make a move on the ball, or you had to make some kind of move between possession and a fumble if a receiver caught the ball. But then also there's the fumble thing, and in a fumble there's a ball flying around everywhere, and there's kind of a scrum of people, pile of people, and the refs have to tap everyone and tell them to get off. And then from what I understand, I mean, usually what happens is the refs just look at who has the ball in their clutch at the bottom of the pile. And so, I mean, technically, before the ref sees anything, you can rip the ball out of someone else's arms at that time, and it's just who in the end can just hold it, and nobody else can grab it at that point. And I think that's probably the clearest thing we can have for possession in this scenario, because what it seems, the kid probably pounced on it and maybe had it for a second or two, but it seems like it bounced out and rolled under the fence, and then this other guy grabbed it. And if that's the case, then it's clearly not the 18-year-old's ball. And because this is a $13 million ball, it's a little bit different than just your typical fly ball. And obviously, in those scenarios, more ethics apply to give a small kid the ball instead of stealing it from them. But when $3 million is on the line, I think that those ethics are off the table, and it's just who gets it in the end. I think he claims that he had it in his legs and in his complaint in Florida, and that the guy took it from his clutch at that point. But looking at the video, I don't see that. I mean, maybe there was a glitch between those two videos where it shows that. But the other thing too is he's on the other side of the fence, so I can't see how the other guy could have done that. And I mean, the only way is he would have had to grab under the fence and grab it. But looking at the cell phone video, there's a fiasco going on, and it seems like the ball is still live. Like there isn't someone that has it in their clutch that has clear possession of it. So if he's claiming that he had the ball for like a little bit, like he just had it and he touched the ball and it popped out, that's not sufficient, I would say, to prove possession. So I don't know if it's a lawsuit that would really prevail. But I mean, it is tick-tacky, and maybe there's more footage from Fox or from somebody else that can show something differently. But from the video I see, it doesn't look like the 18-year-old really has a claim. But what's going on right now is looks like the judge has stopped the auction and waiting. And so what you can do, you can get an injunction, which is kind of stopping something from happening, like stopping a sale from happening or something, or stopping a company from doing something. So that's what they're trying to get. They're trying to stop the auction from happening. And in order to get a preliminary injunction, is what it's called, you pretty much have to tell the judge, hey, judge, this is a slam dunk case. Like the facts are totally in our favor to get this injunction. Like we have clear evidence to win. And based off what I see, I don't see that they had enough evidence to get an injunction. But it seemed like the judge kind of did this small injunction where they kind of paused or stop the auction somewhat, but still allow. Seems like they're ultimately going to allow the auction to go forward. And I mean, in the end, it's. I mean, I don't know if they actually want the baseball or if they're just looking for the money. But if they sell the ball, they can still go after them for the money. So, but in my mind, it seems like an uphill battle on his end, and I would want to review more. I think Fox probably has the full video because it was on live TV and then it cuts out. I think the camera was still rolling on really the scenario here, and that's probably the best clear view. And so if there's anything that says differently, maybe he might get it, but from my standpoint, I think that the guy that ended up with the ball is the guy that has possession in the end and is the rightful owner to it.